All kinds of nostalgia this morning. It's got me going. It's not good, guys. Start crying before you get up here. It's not good. That Praise Week video got me. You didn't tell me. Jay didn't tell me that. It got me in the feels. I was like, oh, God. I'm excited. I'm excited about this morning. How are y'all? Are you glad to be here? And thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody who's right here. Thank you to everybody who's right there. We appreciate you. I'm glad to have you here. If you've missed the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to teach, and we're currently in a series entitled Secrets to Significance. We're discovering what it takes to live a significant life. You know the reason? It's kind of a selfish reason. I want each of you to live a significant life. And that's really how this all came about. As I read the story of Ruth about probably a month ago, when I read the story, I said, this is the life that I want everybody to live. I want each of you to know that you matter. Do y'all know that? Y'all feel that come from me? I want you to know that you matter. I want you to know that what you do matters in this life. I want you to make a difference in your world. I believe from childhood to adulthood, we're all searching for significance, right? Y'all with me this morning? We want our life to have meaning. We want it to amount to something. If you weren't here the very first week of this series, we talked about everything from our superhero fantasies to our status-driven teenage dreams, all the way to the self-imposed, pressure-filled adulthood lives of living a full, big, important life. Most of us at some point get caught up in the rat race, though. Tangled up in the things of this world, what the world tells us we have to do. Trying to elevate our status and our standard of living. In our worldly quest for a significant life, we find ourselves chasing ghosts. It just can't be caught. The fortunate ones of us eventually realize that there must be a different approach, right? Thank you, Tony. The path to significance must be completely different than what we've been told our whole life. And I believe that's the case. I believe the secrets to significance can be found in the life of a young Moabite widow woman named Ruth. Strangely enough, there's a book of the Bible named after her. Although her worldly significance would lend us to believe that that's not necessary. Y'all ready to get going this morning? Good. Last week we began in the book of Ruth with an Israelite family of 4. They were farmers from Bethlehem. They've uprooted their lives and they've headed to Moab. Elimelech is the father. His wife is Naomi. And they have 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Y'all remember them? They've all left their home and culture in order to survive a famine that has swept the region. Once they settle in Moab, it looks like they are going to survive the famine. Do y'all remember what happened? Elimelech died. Exactly right. The father, the one that led them to Moab, he just up and dies. The 2 sons end up marrying 2 Moabite women, Orpah and the focus of this series, Ruth. 10 years pass. They stay 10 years in Moab, waiting on this famine to be over. And guess what happens? The sons die. See, y'all got this story. Y'all know this story. The 2 sons die. So now we're left with Naomi and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they are all 3 now widows, and I described at length last week that is essentially a plunge into poverty. That is a sentence of a difficult life in this time period because of the way things worked. Following the tragic turn in Naomi's life, she hears that things have gotten better back in Bethlehem, so she wants to go home. So she leaves to go home. She takes her 2 daughter-in-laws. They start down the road, and then she stops. Y'all remember this? She stops and she looks at them and she says, girls, y'all need to go back home. Y'all don't need to go with me. You know why? Because she recognizes This is not what's best for them. What's best for these two, what's best for Orpah and Ruth is for them to stay in Moab. They're young enough. They can remarry. They can have a life. They can stay with their moms and dads and their cousins and their brothers and sisters. They can be with their families. What's best for them is you stay. And so she doesn't just ask them to stay. She kind of orders them to stay. Do y'all remember that? She says, guys, you two girls, y'all got to stay here. There's no future for you if you go with me. You have to stay here. Orpah eventually obliges her, but Ruth refuses. You remember Ruth makes this pledge, right, Tony? Tony likes his pledge. He cries every time I say it. Y'all remember it? It says, wherever you go, I go. That's what Ruth said to Naomi. Wherever you go, I go. Wherever you live, I live. Your people are going to be my people. Your God is going to be my God. And wherever you die, Naomi, that's where I'm going to die, and that's where I'm going to be buried. May God deal with me harshly if I don't uphold this. Y'all remember all that? That's good stuff, man. Tony's crying. Ruth didn't just say it. She went with her. Naomi didn't argue anymore, and they went together to Bethlehem. And that's where we discovered our first significance, this first secret to significance. If Ruth is our template, then what she showed us is in order to experience a significant life, we must first give someone significance. We learned that the path to a significant life is paved with the significance that we give away to others. Y'all remember that? With God's help, we can love someone in such a way that we inherently give them significance. Repeatedly, guys, we are shown in the Bible that those who love significantly become significant. And we discussed the fact that we all have that same opportunity. So everybody caught up? All you people online caught up? Good. Let's go. So we pick up in our story. Ruth and Naomi have continued on their journey back to Bethlehem. And this takes them west across the Jordan River. And I am not going to lie to you guys. This is honestly, I was reading some commentaries this week, and this is what it said. This walk for these two women, this impoverished widows, is mostly uphill. I'm not making that up. It's mostly uphill. I don't know if it was snowing. Probably not. But it was uphill. It was a difficult trip for them. But the two ladies made it. When they arrived in Bethlehem, we are told the entire town was excited for their arrival. Now you get that. Naomi's coming home, and people are excited. They've heard that she's coming, and they're excited about it. So Bethlehem's not some big city. It's more like a big village, right? Y'all remember this? It's a place where everybody knows your name, where they're all glad you came, where we can see our troubles are all the same. Y'all got that joke. I'm going to be honest. I had planned on, if nobody laughed, just moving through it like there was nothing to that. That's, for you kids, that's Cheers. That's a TV show. It's a song. Anyway, we're moving on. Oh. Sorry, I just had to do it. Some of the women asked, though, when they saw Naomi come home, they heard. They said, "Is it really Naomi?" They were looking at her. Is this Naomi? I have a theory. The time in Moab had treated her harshly. The grief, the anguish, it put some years on her. Perhaps even the poverty. She was barely recognizable. And when these people saw her and they were like, "Is it Naomi?" I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Naomi kind of responded to them harshly. She said, "Don't call me Naomi." If you don't remember this last week, Naomi means pleasant or sweet. She said, "Don't call me Naomi." She said, "Call me Mara," because it means bitter. Now, come on now. She said, "Don't call me that. Don't you call me pleasant. Don't you call me sweet. You call me bitter. Because God has taken everything from me." I'm going to just read this to you. It's not going to be on the screens because I just want you to listen. All right, everybody listening? Just listen. This is what she said. The Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me? How would you describe her state of mind right now? I think bitter is a good word. I'll be honest with you, she's saturated in bitterness. And I believe that coming home only made that worse. I don't know what it was coming home to Bethlehem. Maybe it was walking those streets that she used to walk with her little boys. Perhaps he was thinking about all the things that her and Elimelech used to do together around town. It's made her more bitter. I want to point out something I find interesting, though. And this is just food for thought, okay? I'm not going to use this in any sort of teaching later or anything, so I just want to point this out. Every time she addresses God, she does so with such respect. And she's returned to Bethlehem because she heard God was blessing the place. But she says, the Almighty, my Lord, the Lord, like when she talks about Him. This sounds like a woman to me that still has faith in God. She believes in God. She's not really turned her back on God, yet she's not afraid to take and lay the blame and the responsibility for what she's been through at His feet. That's so real, isn't it, Ann? I mean, that's just real. I mean, that's just like, I thought about that, and I thought, man, that's just something I got to say. She's got some feelings. When Naomi and Ruth arrive in Bethlehem, it's the beginning of the barley harvest, which means it's around April, which meant it was an excellent chance for Naomi and Ruth. Read with me right here, and I want to explain that. In verse 2, it says, chapter 2, verse 2, it says, one day Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go out into the harvest fields to pick up the stalks of grain left behind by anyone who is kind enough to let me do it. You got it? So you probably have a couple questions. What's happening? What's going on? What is the barley harvest? What does that look like? What's she asking for? And how's she going to, what's she talking about? The process of turning barley into food begins this way. Hired men come in, they cut down the barley. Other men or women follow behind and they gather the barley up and they tie it into bundles. Okay? Then they take those bundles, they let them dry, and then they take them to a place called the threshing floors where they are threshed, where they are pounded into a usable substance. Okay? What Ruth is referring to is within this normal harvesting process in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, there is a law communicated that allows for people in need to follow behind after the harvesters have went through and gather the excess. Anything that was left. Any little pieces that they could find and take it home and eat it. It's called gleaning, is what it was called. This law encourages landowners and farmers to be generous, and it creates an avenue for those in need to do some work and to get a little bit of food to survive. Y'all got this? It's a welfare program. That's what it is. It's a sweet program. It sounds like a great thing. But as with anything that people are involved in, it had some flaws. And I just want to point this out. Not everybody probably chose to participate in this or liked this process, people being on their fields. What did she say? What did Ruth say? She said, for anyone who's nice enough to let me do it. Meaning there's some people who aren't nice enough, right? Not only that, but going out in the countryside as a young Moabite woman all alone, surrounded by all types of men and different people, and you're out in the country. You're not like in town where maybe it's a little bit more safe. You're out there all by yourself. That comes with some danger for a young Moabite single woman. That's why she's asking permission. Naomi approves the endeavor. She says, I think you should go, which can only show us that they're desperate. They're living meal to meal. This is something that's got to happen in order for them to survive. So Naomi says, sure, go. And then you got to look at this. And as it happened, that's important. Let's just note that real quick. What does it say? Read those words with me, those first ones. And as it happened, we're going to come back to that next week. She found herself working in a field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law, Elimelech. So you're probably wondering, all right, Tim, who's Boaz? We're just coming all sorts of stuff I got to have answers to. Who's Boaz? First off, he is a middle-aged man, a little older. He's single. And we're told in the Bible two things. He was, first off, wealthy. He's real wealthy. He's a man with a lot of means. He's got a lot of land. He owns a lot of fields. He has a lot of workers that work for him. But I want to describe this in such a way that you understand. When it says wealthy, it's not like he was just born into money. The words that they actually use to describe him as being wealthy actually tells us that he was a man who had worked for what he got. He was wise. He made good decisions. He was a strong businessman. He was honest, and that led to wealth. And he was even, it even says, we're told, he was blessed by God even during this famine. Secondly, we're told he was a man of influence. A man of influence. But when you look up the words of that, it doesn't mean just power and authority. It means that literally he had influence that was born out of integrity. Influence born because of the kind of guy he was, how he treated other people. He was respected. So Ruth just so happens to be working in Boaz's field. And this is what you got to see. You got to see what happens. It's good, I'm telling you. While she was there, verse 4, while she was there, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you," he said. "The Lord bless you," the harvesters replied. This is exactly what happens, guys, when Ronnie shows up to work. It's the same thing. I don't know why he does this, but when Ronnie gets here, there's the double doors out front. He opens both doors like this. And he says, "GCC staff, the Lord be with you." And we go, "Shut up, Ronnie." That's what we would say if he ever did that. I'm just saying, oh, God. Listen, I don't know. I think we can infer something from this. He loved his workers. I mean, he came in, he greeted them like that. You know what I think? They liked him. "Lord bless you." I think it just kind of speaks to what kind of guy he must have been. In verse 5, then Boaz asked his foreman, "Who is this young woman over there? Who does she belong to?" Now, I want to stop. Boaz gets there. People are working. Everybody's getting work done. He looks and he notices this young woman. Now, I think he notices her for two reasons. I'm going to be fair. I think he notices her for two reasons. And I don't want to seem superficial. Ladies, don't get mad at me. Okay? But I've studied the human behavior for a lot of years now. I think he noticed her because she's pretty. Is that fair? Is that okay? Okay, good. I'm just saying, I think he notices her. That's what I imagine in my mind. She's pretty. But I also think he notices that she's working and how she's working. I think she's in behind these guys working. And the foreman replied, "She's the young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if she could gather grain behind the harvesters. She's been hard at work ever since, except for a few minutes rest in the shelter." The way I understand this process, the way this happened, this means that Ruth, when she got to the field, she found the foreman. She walked up to the foreman and she said, "Hey, could I just fall in right now with the harvesters? Could I go ahead and just get right in there behind them and just start working?" I think the way I understand this is probably some sort of a special consideration. I read about this a lot this week just because I was curious. Oftentimes what would happen is the workers, they would go and do all their work. They would start to clear the field and then you could go in. But what she apparently asked to do was, "Hey, can I get right in there, right in among the bundles as everybody's working, and can I just start gathering right now?" It's pretty cool. Boaz didn't respond harshly to the foreman. The foreman apparently had done a good thing. Verse 8 says, Boaz went over and said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, stay right here with us when you gather grain. Don't go to any other fields. Stay right behind the young women working in my field. See which part of the field they're harvesting, and then you follow them. I have warned the young men not to treat you roughly." So apparently this is what happened. Apparently, Boaz at some point, before he went over to Ruth, he went over to the guys that were all working in his field. He said, "You see that little girl over there? You treat her well. No crude statements. Don't look down upon her. Don't treat her harshly. You let her do what she's doing." It's pretty cool. "And when you are thirsty, help yourself to the water that they have." So apparently they have water that's there for the workers. Boaz said, "Listen, I want you stay in these fields. You stay with my workers. They're going to treat you good. I've made sure of it. And there's water for everybody. You can have any of that water you want. You get thirsty, you go get a drink." In verse 10, we see how she responded. Ruth fell at his feet and she thanked him warmly. You see that? She fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. "What have I done to deserve such kindness from you?" She asked, "I am only a foreigner." This is so important, guys. You got to see this. Verse 11, she said, "Yes, I know," Boaz replied. "But I also know about everything you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I have heard how you left your father and mother and your own land to live here among complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done." I want you to look at what Boaz acknowledges right here. Boaz, he acknowledges her reputation. Right? He's saying, I've heard about all you've done. He acknowledges the sacrifice that she's made. He even acknowledges her conversion. Didn't he? He said, "May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done." Somehow he knew this girl has come here. She's sacrificed everything. I've heard how she's been taking care of her mother-in-law. And she has faith in our God. She's living in such a way that people are talking about her. People are talking about what she's done and who she is. Ruth was floored by his kindness. According to she was floored by it. Thanked him repeatedly. A little later, Boaz and his workers, they were having a lunch break, and Boaz called her over and he said, "Hey, Ruth, come over here. You need to eat. You need to eat you some." And it says they were eating roasted grain, and it was like dipped in a sour type of wine. It was a nice meal. It was good food. Tasty. He must have loaded her plate down. He must have loaded her plate down because it said that she had to have a to-go plate when he got done. I bet it was the best meal she'd eaten in a long time. I bet it was. As they head back to work, Boaz had another brief meeting with his workers. And he explains that Ruth is going to be there. She's going to be there long term. She's going to be staying right with the harvesters the whole time. And then he says this. He says, "And guys, do me a favor. Drop a little extra. Just, drop a little extra. Don't be worried about picking up every scrap. Just leave it." Ruth went back to work right behind them. We're told she worked the rest of the day. And by the end of it, she had a basket full of barley, which we kind of know what kind of baskets they use, which meant she probably had 30 pounds of barley that she had picked up that were scraps off of this field. I believe Ruth skipped home. I mean, it's a 30-pound sack, so I don't know how good she's skipping, but she skipped home. She got her to-go plate, she got her 30-pound sack, and she's skipping, okay? That's just how I see her. Can't you just see her when she walks in the door? I think she's busting the door. Naomi, I'm home. Naomi's over there all bitter. And she just throws this 30-pound sack on the counter. She hands her the to-go plate with the roasted grain. Get you some of that. That's good. Can't you see Naomi's face? Naomi's like, what is going on? Where did you get all that? Where did you get all this food? And she said, so I just picked a field, and as it happened, catch it, I was in a field of a man named Boaz. And he did all this. He treated me so kind. He gave me this food. And not only that, but he told me, he said, listen, you keep coming here. You come here every day. You'll be safe here. I'll make sure of it. He told me just to keep coming back to his place. I believe Naomi smiled. I'm just being honest. I believe she did. She tells Ruth, she says, Ruth, that's one of Elimelech's relatives. He's a family redeemer, which we'll talk about next week. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff we got to talk about next week. And she said something. She acknowledges that God's shown them kindness through Boaz. She said, he's been kind to me. He's been kind to us. Imagine the relief she feels at just that first time after all this loss, all this hardship. Just that little piece of kindness that she felt. We're told at the end of this chapter that Ruth goes, she follows Boaz's harvesters all the way through the barley harvest, and then she goes into the wheat harvest, because I guess at some point he goes, hey, just keep coming. We got wheat next, and we can eat that too, and that's what she did. All the way into summertime. And guys, I want to be honest with you, I believe with all of my heart they were 30-pound sacks coming home all the time. And that would be enough to feed them for days. It was a turn for them, for these two girls. It was an incredible turn for them. So did you catch secret number 2? Anybody got it? I'm just curious. There's lots of them, I guess. But would y'all like to know what secret number 2 is? Y'all ready? Say, we ready. Good. Live each day significantly. I believe we are shown plainly in the story that the next secret to significance is living each day like it's significant. We are to treat every single day that we're given like it matters. When you look at this story, do you see how Ruth approached her life? Right here in chapter 2, do you see how Ruth approached her life? Do you see that she lived her day significantly? Do y'all see it? Some of you don't see it. That's okay. It's okay. I would like to have the opportunity to show it to you. Can I show it to you? Can I show it to you? I'll do so by asking you some questions. Because this is the definition, I believe, of living your days significantly. Treating each day like it's significant. So let me ask you some questions. Now I want y'all to answer. Who made Ruth go to the fields? Say it louder, please. Who made Ruth go to the fields? Okay, good. Nobody. Nobody made Ruth go to the fields. She didn't receive some order from someone. I believe that Ruth assessed their situation when they arrived back in Bethlehem. She knew what needed to happen. She assessed the situation and realized we are going to be living one meal to the next. That's what our lives are going to look like. So I've got to figure out some way that we can have a meal. She looked around and she said, well, who's going to provide it? You going to provide a meal? Are you going to provide a meal? Nobody's going to provide it. So what do I got to do? I don't know how, but she heard about this process of gleaning. Maybe Naomi told her. Maybe she heard about it from somebody else. And she took the initiative. She knew if it was going to happen, she had to do it. She took the responsibility for her and Naomi's well-being, and she got up early in the morning. She got dressed. She got her work gloves on. She put her work boots on. And she went looking for a field. Do you see that? Another question. What did Ruth do once she found a field? Hang on. Before that, she went to the foreman. Yeah, see, Ann, I got you. I know more than you. I would describe it as she made the best out of it. Now, I want you guys know, I like for you to think about the way this had to feel. This was the welfare program. She knew that. You're walking onto somebody else's field with all these other people who got jobs and are working and are doing their thing. Do you think perhaps it could have been a little embarrassing? Perhaps a little bit awkward? Maybe even intimidating? Terrifying. You're walking on somebody. What if this landowner, what if this foreman, what if they don't like this? What if they're like, no, you're going to get in our way? What if they don't allow it? What if one of those other workers are bad people and see you? She could have easily just hung back and waited for the field to be empty, but that isn't what she did. What did she do? She made the best out of it. She went up, walked straight up to the foreman. That's what we're told. Walked straight up to the foreman, and she asked him. She said, hey, I'm a widow, and I'm trying to take care of my mother-in-law, and I would like to join in. And just right now with the harvesters that are working, I'd like to just start working if that's okay. She took a chance. She put herself out there. She trusted God, right? Had to be some trust. Had to be some faith. She said, would you mind? And he said, no, go ahead. Now, once she got in the field, what did Ruth do? She went to work, and there you go. She went to work. She worked her tail off. She worked her tail off. You know how I know? I believe with all my heart. I told you she was pretty. Boaz notices her right off. I believe he noticed how she was working. I believe that he noticed the intensity she was going about what she was doing. The foreman himself, what did he say? He said, man, she got here this morning. She asked if she could jump right in there with the harvesters, and she has been working all day. She's only taking a few minutes rest in the shelter. You know what he's implying? She's working hard. She's working as hard as those men are. She's working as hard as all the people that we're paying. She's working as hard as they are. She worked with an intensity. She was gathering all that she could because she knew that this was her and Naomi's chance. This was their next meal. How did she respond to Boaz's kindness? Give me something. How did she respond to Boaz's kindness? She was humble. She was humble. She fell at his feet. Boaz comes up and says, hey, how's it going? I'd like to help you out. She fell at his feet. Doesn't that speak volumes about what her attitude must have been? She was thinking, she said, who am I? Who am I that you would do this for me? She's not prideful about what she's doing. She's not angry that she's out there in the middle of the field. Look at the attitude with which she was living. She didn't give him some pity party. She was thankful. She had an attitude of thankfulness to him. Now, I know somebody here is a naysayer. I know it. I'm looking at you. You're a naysayer, and you're going, well, Tim, this is one day. This is one snapshot of her life. This is one day that we get to see where she was living like this. I beg to differ. What did Boaz say when he talked to her? I've heard about you. This is just a day in the field. What else has she been doing around town? What else has she been doing for Naomi? He said, I've heard about how you take care of her. I've heard how you're sacrificing, how you've come here. I've heard about your faith in God. I've heard about all these things. Ruth was living this way every single day. Do you agree with me? She was living her best life in spite of her situation. Sorry, this is a better use of that phrase. I'm sorry. It's a better use. Instead of something that we're getting to do, it's something that she chose to do. She's living her best life that she possibly can. Ruth lived each day with intentionality. She took the initiative. She took some chances. She worked real hard. She kept it humble. And she was focused on what her priorities were. That sounds like living each day significantly. That's what it looks like. In spite of her situation. What if she'd never volunteered? She'd never been there. What if she hadn't asked to go ahead and work and just hung back and waited? What if she had went at her work like she hated being there? Just moping around? What if she had a bad attitude when Boaz came up to talk to her? Think about that. She had excuses. Do you think she had excuses? She had all the excuses in the world. I believe she grieved the loss of her husband. I believe she was just as sad as anybody would be. I believe Naomi was probably difficult to love at times. Can I say that? Naomi was bitter. Obviously bitter. We talked about that, right? Obviously bitter. She was telling people, I'm bitter. You bitter if that's what you're doing. Do you think she was hard to love? You think there were days where Naomi got on Ruth's nerves? Probably. She's human. But she loved her. I believe Ruth probably missed her home. She probably missed her family, her mom and dad. I believe it would have been easy for Ruth to be discouraged in her situation. Facing poverty, facing a life where it's meal to meal. I believe bitterness could have just as easily overtaken Ruth as it had overtaken Naomi. Do you agree with that? I believe doing nothing would have been much easier most days. Doing nothing would have been much easier than what Ruth chose to do. So here's my final question for you. How you doing? How are y'all doing? Are you living each day significantly? Do you treat every day of your life like it matters? When you get up in the morning, do you just pop up? Tina said no. Looking to make the best of it? kind of look at your day and go, maybe I'll take a chance today, put myself out there, work hard. I'm going to trust God. I'm going to keep a good attitude. I'm going to stay humble. I'm going to keep my focus on the right things. I mean, is that how you're living each and every day of your life? Are you treating every day like it's important? Or do you walk out the door discouraged? Do you live your life withdrawn from other people? Do you avoid any extra effort or chance to help or jump in and do other things? Would you describe yourself as bitter? Are you sick of the grind? Do you dread most days? Would you say, Tim, I'm about as far from living like Ruth as I could be? I get it. I think it happens to everybody. But I got to ask you a question. What are you missing out on? If you choose to live each day the way you're living it right now, what are you missing out on? What if today is the day that Boaz steps in your field and looks? What if today is the day that Boaz steps in your field and looks? What if today is the day that opportunity and blessing is coming for you and you're nowhere to be found? Or worse, you are presenting a downtrodden, bitter, frustrated, lazy version of yourself, and its gaze just passes right over you. I don't venture to guess what anybody's situation is, and I don't make light of anybody's situation or where you're at or the cards you've been dealt or however you want to say it. But I know this. If it determines our approach, in so many ways it'll determine our blessing. It'll determine our opportunity. We have to approach our days like they matter. Because one day it will. One day this day is going to really be the day. I don't want you to miss out on what God wants to have happen for you and what He wants to do through you. Imagine what Ruth would have missed out on. Imagine what Naomi would have missed out on if Ruth hadn't lived her days like that. So I used to do these draw hunts. Y'all know I had a hunting story in here somewhere. I used to do these draw hunts. We go, basically how a draw hunt works is you put your name in online, and the government has all these properties, and they'll choose, a date that you can come hunt a specific property. Me and my dad and a couple of his buddies used to do that quite frequently. And we'd go on these deer hunts. And one year, a long, long time ago, we were going to a place called Botany Bay Plantation. And that's in Edisto, on the beach, hunting out of a palm tree, shooting deer. It's awesome. Anyway, it's just a cool place. And but when you go on these draw hunts, it's kind of competitive. You know what I mean? Because you got your group that you went with. There's like 30 or 40 other guys, and it's you don't trade secrets, and you kind of be real secretive, and you go find your little piece of property, and you scout, and it's just competitive. You've got to mark your stands that you're going to hunt, and all this stuff. Anyway. And so every time you have these, though, they bring all the men together one time for like a rules session where they give you all the rules of what you're allowed to do. So we're at Botany Bay. It would have been probably 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. And 2009. That's when it would be. And so we're sitting there and having this meeting, and we get done, and everybody kind of breaks up, because nobody knows each other. This guy taps me on the shoulder. I turn around. And he's a young guy about my age, what he looks like, and we start talking, and he's like, where are you guys hunting? I remember, like, he was just asked me, just nice, just asked, where are you guys hunting? And I was like, everything in me goes, I'm not telling you anything. You know, yeah. In the woods, you know. Where are you hunting? Yeah, but no, and I remember he asked me, and I just was like, hey, yeah, we're hunting right down this trail here. We found some good buck sign, da-da-da-da. He was just nice. And so we ended up talking, and I was like, man, he try this spot over here. I think you should try this spot. And he was like, great. And he said, I found some good buck sign over here. And we had 10 or 15 minutes where we talked, and it was just good, and we encouraged one another. He was like, good luck, like, good luck. It was not normally the scenario that happens. Well, I go in, we hunt that evening, and I kill a deer because that's what I do. And my dad was already out truck, and I was dragging this thing by myself because that's what my dad does when I kill a deer. And I was dragging this thing by myself and coming out of the woods, but this guy, his name's Adam, he pulled up beside my dad's truck, and he said, y'all have any luck? And Dad's like, yeah, my boy killed one. And he's like, man, I just enjoyed talking to your son today. There was just something about it. And he said, let me give you something. So he took out a piece of notebook paper, and he wrote his email address. He has a really long last name, and it was like email address like this long. I'll never forget. And he folds this piece of paper up, and he gives it to my dad. I said, tell your boy to email me sometime. I'd love to just talk to him. And so I get out of the woods, and my dad has this piece of paper. He's like, that guy came by, and he wanted to give you his email address, and y'all could talk one day. So honestly, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I folded the email address up. I put it in my wallet. Forgot all about it. We roll around about a year. I'm sitting in my grad school office working on data. And I'll never forget, we're just married. I'm in grad school. I'm working. I'm a part-time student pastor. And I was stressed. I mean, stress is like an understatement of the century. I was extremely stressed. I'm sitting there in my office, eating me a summer sausage, probably off of that deer I killed. And that's what I lived on for a long time. And I look and pull out my wallet, and I find this email address. And I go, man. I said, email this guy, you know. So I email him, and he emails me back a day or two later. And it's all just deer hunting, and that's all we talk about, deer, sending pictures and stuff. And he said, man, let's exchange numbers and talk. And so we got on the phone, and we're sitting there talking on the phone. And he said, well, man, what do you do? And I told him, and I said, I'm a part-time, student pastor. And he goes, I knew it. I knew it. I said, what did you know? And he said, I knew you were a Christian, dude. I knew it. He said, I could tell just the way we talk to one another. I could tell it. He said, I work with the students at my church. I said, whoa. I said, that's awesome. And we got talking. He said, I play the drums at my church. I'm like, dude, I'm a guitar player. This is great. And so we start talking, man. And, we got to talk about God. And then we started just calling each other. And we talk about life. He was just married. I was just married. He was having a kid. We were getting ready to have a kid not too long from then. I mean, but I want to tell you what really happened. I can't tell you the number of times we prayed for one another. He'd come up and visit. We'd go down and visit. We did the whole thing. We got to be friends. But more than anything right now, I know that in Charleston, South Carolina, there is a family of 5. That if my life gets rough and my seas get rough, I could pick up the phone. I could call them, and I could say, guys, we need prayer. And they would pray like us, like nobody you've ever met. They have been a blessing in our life. And listen, we don't talk all the time. We're not super close now, but I'm telling you, I know that relationship is there. And I often think to myself, what would have happened had I been a deer hunter first? Or I'd have been in a hurry. Or I'd have had a bad attitude. Or he'd have done the same. What would we have missed out on? Every interaction, every deed, everything that you do every day, it can matter. If it's picking up the scraps off the field, it can matter. Because you never know when it's coming, and you never know who's watching. And if you will live your life like it matters, it will. we can live each day significantly. The way I figure it, I've lived 13,000 days. Right? Yeah. 13,000. At best, I've got 13 or 15,000 more. I'm pretty hard on myself, guys. I mean, this body ain't going to last forever. 13,000, 15,000 days, somewhere in there. I can do this. This is doable. Ain't nothing. Live each day like it matters. Give significance away as much as you can and live each day like it matters. Fair enough? Let me pray for you. Father, thank you so much for this morning. I thank you for each and every person that is here. Thank you for every single body that's watching online and just the opportunity that we have right here. The opportunity we have to come together, to get in your word, to learn about you, to learn about Ruth. I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the fact that she had enough salt to get up every day and live the way she lived for her and for Naomi. And God, that you used that. You did something with that. You sent a blessing into her life, and he caught a glimpse of her because of how she was living, because of what she was doing. And he blessed her immensely. And God, I pray this, that we will treat our days like that. And this is what I know there are people out here right now that they're thinking about everything they're facing. They're thinking about everything that they're going through. They're thinking about all the challenges that they have to face every day, or going back to that workplace that just stinks, and going back having to deal with this person or deal with that person, or going back to that bank account or whatever it is that they've got. They know, I'm walking out of here right back into that same life. I don't know that I can live like this. I want to encourage them to do something. Try it today. Try to live it today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about a week from now. Try to live today significantly. Treat today like it matters. Treat every interaction, everything that you get to do, like it matters, God. We can try it today. Father, I pray that that's what we will do. I pray that that's what each one of us will do. God, I'm so excited for the final part of this series. I just think it's the best part. And I just pray this, that you'll bring us back together, that you will begin to prepare our hearts right now for what you're going to say to us, what you said to us today, but also what you're going to say to us next week. And God, that you will just prepare us. And what we'll see is a group of people who know they matter, living lives that matter. And God, that you'll be glorified. Father, we thank you. It's in Jesus' name, and everybody says, Amen.